The desert had a name in the old Veth tongue, Carath Solen, the place where things end. It was not a poetic exaggeration. The Veth had named it practically, the way you named a knife or a wound, by what it did. Temperatures that swung from furnace to freeze between daylight and dark. Sand that moved like a living thing, swallowing the dead and the unlucky with equal indifference. No water within 200 kilometers of the impact site. No shelter. No comm signal. And somewhere beneath the cracked, salt-white crust of the basin floor, a nest of Dracari eggs. The juvenile forms of the most sacred, most endangered species in the Veth sovereignty, cracking open, one by one, in the wrong place at the wrong time, because the transport ship carrying them had gone down in a storm none of the automated systems had predicted. The ship's crew had evacuated in 2 pods. They had not checked whether everyone was accounted for. Ryland woke up to silence, smoke, and a Veth emergency transponder blinking red. He was the ship's mechanic, not a soldier, not a xenobiologist, not even a particularly senior crew member. He was the human they'd hired because he had the fastest diagnostic hands in the sector and would work for 60% of what a Veth engineer cost. He'd been in the lower cargo bay when the storm hit, thrown against the bulkhead, out cold for what his wristband told him was 4 hours. He sat up, coughed smoke, took inventory. Right shoulder, dislocated, already swelling. He'd have to deal with that. Left forearm, gash, maybe 8 centimeters, already clotted over with the stubborn efficiency of human blood that had been doing this kind of thing for 100,000 years. Head, ringing, but thinking. He reset his shoulder against the cargo frame, a sound that should not exist, a pain that briefly whited out his vision, and then breathed until the world came back. Okay, Ryland said. Okay. He found water in the emergency locker. 3 liters. He found a reflective survival tarp, a standard issue med kit, and a flare gun with 2 cartridges. He also found the egg crate. It had been secured to the cargo floor by 4 mag locks. 3 of the locks had blown in the crash. The 4th had held. The crate was cracked down one side, but intact, and from inside it came a sound that Ryland, who had grown up watching every nature documentary humanity had ever produced, recognized immediately. Hatching. He pried the crate open carefully, one-handed, his reset shoulders screaming at him. Inside were 12 eggs, each about the size of a human head, matte black and warm to the touch. 5 of them were already showing stress fractures. As he watched, one fractured further, a long crack running from pole to pole, and a small, scaled head emerged, blinking in the smoky light. It looked at Ryland. Ryland looked at it. The hatchling made a sound like a very small, very determined thunderclap. Then it crawled the rest of the way out of its shell, shook itself, and bit Ryland's finger. Not hard. Experimentally. Yeah, Ryland said. Hello to you too. He knew what Dracari were. Everyone in the sovereignty knew. They were the Veth's living gods. Ancient beings that spent their adult centuries in the upper atmosphere, rarely seen, never harmed. Their eggs were transported only once per generation, when a new nesting site was established. There were fewer than 200 Dracari left. There were 12 eggs in this crate. And he was alone in a desert with no comm signal and a wristband telling him the ambient temperature was going to hit 63 degrees Celsius in approximately 4 hours. Ryland looked at the hatchling. The hatchling looked back with eyes like liquid copper. I'm going to need you to be patient with me, he said. I'm working with limited materials. He built shade first. The survival tarp was reflective on one side, dark on the other. He rigged it against the ship's intact hull section using cargo straps and the ship's extended landing strut, creating a wedge of shadow large enough to shelter the egg crate and himself. It wasn't elegant. It worked. The heat came anyway, a physical weight pressing down from a white sky. But under the tarp, with the hull's residual thermal mass absorbing rather than radiating, it was survivable. Barely. 3 more eggs hatched while he worked. The hatchlings were instinctively drawn to warmth, which meant they were drawn to Ryland. By midday, he had 4 small Dracari arranged across his legs and torso, their scales, still soft and iridescent at this age, not yet the armored plating they'd develop, absorbing his body heat with something that felt embarrassingly like contentment. They weighed about 4 kilograms each. They were, objectively, the most dangerous juvenile animals in the known galaxy. Adult Dracari could generate plasma breath. These ones chirped at each other and occasionally bit his fingers with tiny, needle-sharp teeth. Ryland rationed his water with the precision of a man who had once spent 3 days repairing a cooling system in a sealed compartment with half a thermos and some very clear priorities. He wet his lips. He wet the eggs. He allowed himself 3 small sips every 2 hours. The temperature peaked at 61 degrees and came back down. He made it to dark. Night on Carath Solen was different from anything Ryland had experienced. The temperature plunged. The stars came out in a density that made the sky look crowded. And the hatchlings, all 8 of them now, pressed against him under the tarp, did something he hadn't anticipated. They generated heat. Not much. Not nearly enough on their own. But together, piled against a human who was already running a mild fever from the infected gash on his forearm, with the tarp trapping the thermal mass. It was enough. He slept in 2-hour intervals, waking each time to check the remaining eggs, to listen for the predators his wristband's basic sensors were detecting at the edge of range, large, heat-seeking, exactly the kind of thing that would consider a nest of hatchlings an exceptional find. He had no weapon. He had a wrench, the flare gun with 2 cartridges, a length of cargo strap, and the particular human talent for turning available materials into something that at least looked dangerous. He spent one of the dark hours building a perimeter. Cargo straps stretched between hull fragments at ankle height. Pieces of broken hull plating propped at angles that would fall and clatter if disturbed. It wasn't a wall. It was an alarm system, and a bluff, and the best he could do. 3 times during the night, something large circled the perimeter. 3 times, Ryland stood up, 8 hatchlings cascading off him in confused protest, and fired the wrench against the hull plating. A ringing, industrial sound. Human-made. Alien. 3 times, the circling stopped. He didn't know if it was the sound or the smell or something else. He didn't need to know. He needed it to keep working. It kept working. Soraya found him on the 2nd day. She was the Veth Sovereignty's senior Dracary conservator, the one who had argued, publicly and at great career cost, that the transport mission was understaffed and under-resourced. She had taken the 2nd rescue shuttle herself when the automated systems finally re-established a weak comms signal from the wreck. She had expected to find debris, shells, evidence. She had not expected to find a human sitting cross-legged in a wedge of shade with 10 Dracary hatchlings arranged on and around him like an extremely dangerous quilt, his left arm bandaged with strips of his own uniform, his right shoulder wrapped in what appeared to be a compression rig he had fabricated from cargo straps, his water long gone, his eyes clear. He looked up when her shuttle landed. "There are 2 eggs left," he said. His voice was rough with dehydration. "They're close. Maybe 2 more hours. Can we wait?" Soraya stood in the shuttle door and did not speak for a long moment. The hatchling currently asleep on Ryland's left knee opened one copper eye, regarded her with profound disinterest, and went back to sleep. "The Dracary do not imprint on non-Veth," Soraya said. It came out strangely, like something she was saying to convince herself. Ryland looked down at the hatchling on his knee. He looked at the 3 on his shoulders. He looked at the one that had bitten his finger 12 times in the past day and had recently started sleeping on his head. "Yeah," he said. "Sure." Soraya crossed the sand and crouched in front of him. She looked at his arm. She looked at his shoulder. She looked at the water container, bone dry, that had held 3 liters. "You have been here 2 days," she said. "Without water since last night. With infected wounds." She paused. "Why did you not fire the flares to signal earlier?" Ryland was quiet for a moment. "I only had 2, he said. "I needed them to scare off the predators. And I didn't know when the rescue window was." He shrugged his good shoulder. "Seemed like the flares were more useful keeping them alive than getting me found. Someone was going to come eventually." Soraya looked at him for a long time. "You spent your only signaling resources," she said slowly, "protecting the eggs. They couldn't protect themselves." He said it like it was obvious. "I could." The 2 remaining eggs hatched 40 minutes later, in the shade of the rescue shuttle, Ryland's hand resting on the crate because the hatchlings inside were agitated and the ones outside had learned that his touch meant calm. All 12 Dracary. All 12 alive. In the Veth Sovereignty's 3,000-year record of Dracary conservation, no clutch had ever survived a transport loss event. Not one. Soraya filed her report with shaking hands. 12 hatchlings recovered. 0 losses. Survival attributed to the actions of Ryland, human mechanic, who remained with the clutch voluntarily, without resources, across 2 days of lethal range temperature exposure and prioritized egg welfare over personal rescue signaling. She added one personal note, flagged non-official, because she could not find a way to leave it out. The hatchlings have imprinted. This should not be possible with a non-Veth subject. I have no framework to explain it. The most accurate description I can offer is that they recognized something, some quality, and responded to it. I have reviewed the xenopsychology literature. I have reviewed the behavioral data. The closest analog I can find is the Veth concept of Ka-Sol, the old word, the one we stopped using because we thought we had outgrown the need for it. It means one who stays.